He only had a brick and a bag of cans, but what he did with them changed 2 lives forever. They say most heroes don't wear capes, but sometimes they carry empty soda cans in a garbage bag and wear shoes 2 sizes too big. It had just rained in Macon, Georgia. Not enough to flood the streets, but enough to leave the pavement slick and dark like spilled oil. The clouds were still hanging low over the rooftops like they hadn't made up their mind yet. 12-year-old Jaylen Brooks walked with his head down, dragging a nearly full black trash bag behind him. It clinked with every step. Soda cans, beer bottles, anything worth a few cents at the recycling center. He'd been out since the school bell rang, zigzagging between the quick-stop parking lot, the baseball field behind Monroe High, and a row of dumpsters behind Big D's barbecue. Nothing glamorous, but he wasn't looking for glory, just enough to help Mama cover the light bill this month. Jaylen didn't talk much, didn't play with other kids much either. Not because he didn't want to, but when your socks have holes and your lunches come wrapped in grocery bags, it's easier to stay quiet than deal with stares. Still, he was sharp, real sharp. He noticed everything. Who came and went, who left behind what, who changed their car's oil in the alley and didn't clean up after. He was the kind of kid who saw what most people ignored. That Friday afternoon, he was heading home from the East Macon Community Center, cutting through an alley behind a shuttered laundromat. It wasn't the safest route, but it shaved off 10 minutes. And on tired legs, 10 minutes mattered. He paused under a busted streetlight. The bag of cans was heavy now, pulling on his arm. He switched hands, wiped his nose with his sleeve. The smell of wet trash and fried grease drifted through the air. Then he heard it, a short, sharp cry. He stopped, squinted down the alley. There it was again, a voice, low and cracked, barely a whisper but full of panic. Then a grunt, a thud. Something, or someone, was in trouble. Jaylen's first instinct was to keep walking. Not his business. Grown folks always said, "Mind your own, don't get involved." And normally he did. But something about the sound made him freeze. Another groan, a shoe scuffed against concrete. Muffled voices, angry. His fingers curled around the strap of his bag. His heart was thumping now, loud and fast. That alley was maybe 40 feet away. He could just peek, nothing more. If it was something dangerous, he could run. He took a breath, stepped forward, but what he heard next made him stop in his tracks. "Get off me, please!" It was a woman. Her voice cracked like something had broken in her chest. Jaylen crept toward the edge of the alley, careful not to let his shoes slap against the wet pavement. He dropped his bag of cans behind a dumpster and leaned just far enough around the corner to see. 2 men, tall, both in black hoodies and jeans. One had his back to Jaylen. The other stood closer to the woman, his fist clenched at his side. She was slumped against the wall, one shoe missing, her coat torn. Her lip was split and bleeding, and her hands trembled as she tried to cover her face. "This ain't your business, lady," the taller man growled. "You should have kept walking." "I told you," she gasped. "I don't have it on me." "You think we're stupid?" the shorter one snapped, raising his hand again. "You think we don't know who you are?" Jaylen felt something twist in his stomach. He didn't recognize the woman, but the way they talked to her, it wasn't just a random mugging. They knew her. This was planned. The woman flinched as the man leaned forward. "You thought disappearing meant we'd forget?" he hissed. "Nah, we remember everything, Margot." Margot? That name landed in Jaylen's brain like a rock through glass. He didn't know anyone named Margot personally, but he'd heard it. Somewhere. Maybe on the news? The shorter man grabbed her wrist and jerked her upright. She cried out again. Jaylen stepped back, heart pounding in his ears. His feet felt stuck in wet cement. He should run. He should find someone, call someone. But his phone was dead. It had died earlier at the rec center, and he forgot to bring his charger. The taller man leaned in now, too. "Let's see how much pain you can take before you talk," he muttered. Jaylen's hands started shaking. His mouth was dry. His brain screamed, "Run!" But his body didn't move. Then his eyes landed on something next to the dumpster. Half a brick. Not a full plan. Not even half a plan. But better than watching. He picked it up. Heavy. Cold. Slick with rain. His fingers clenched around it. He counted to 3, whispered, "God, please," under his breath. Then, "Hey." His voice cracked, but it echoed loud. The two men whipped around just as Jaylen launched the brick. It hit the taller one square in the shoulder, knocking him off balance. What the? Jaylen didn't wait for the rest. He darted into the alley, grabbed the woman's free hand, and pulled. Come on, he yelled. Run! To her credit, she didn't hesitate. She stumbled, but she followed. They ran together, slipping through puddles, the woman limping badly. The two men cursed behind them, footsteps pounding. One of them shouted, Get back here, you little punk! Jaylen turned left behind a Thai restaurant, then right through a narrow gap between two buildings. He knew these streets like the back of his hand. He zigzagged until even the shadows felt out of breath. By the time they ducked behind an old auto garage, the footsteps had faded. They were alone, safe, for now. The woman collapsed onto a stack of wooden pallets, gasping. I can't, my ankle. Jaylen crouched beside her. Up close, she looked worse than he thought. Swollen eye, blood on her cheek. Her coat was soaked through and her breathing sounded shallow. You okay? He asked, voice low. She looked at him, really looked, like she was trying to make sense of who he was. You're a kid, she whispered. Yeah, so? She gave a weak laugh, then winced. You could have been killed. You could have been too, he shot back. They were gonna hurt you. Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, but all that came out was a choked sob. Jaylen stood up, peeking over the metal bin beside them. No sign of the men. You need a hospital, he said. You got a phone? She shook her head. They took my bag, everything. Okay, he muttered. I know a payphone 2 blocks from here. You think you can walk? She nodded slowly. With your help. Jaylen held out his arm. She gripped it like it was the only solid thing left in her world. Step by step, they limped back toward the light. Not a word between them. Just the sound of raindrops dripping off rooftops and the clink of broken glass under their shoes. At the payphone, Jaylen dug into his pocket, pulled out 2 damp quarters, and handed them to her. She hesitated, then made the call. Within 10 minutes, flashing red and blue lights lit up the street. EMTs rushed out. A police officer asked Jaylen 100 questions. He answered most, left out some. Then someone tapped him on the shoulder, a tall man in a suit. She wants to see you. Jaylen blinked. Who? The woman you saved. Her name's Margot Siver. That name again. Real this time. He followed the man to the ambulance where the woman lay strapped to a stretcher covered in a blanket. Her face was pale, but her eyes found him immediately. You, she said hoarsely. Don't go, please. But Jaylen had no idea who he had just saved. The next morning, Jaylen sat at the edge of the twin mattress he shared with his little cousin. The smell of burnt toast drifted in from the kitchen, along with his mama's voice fussing about the broken toaster again. But Jaylen wasn't listening. His eyes were glued to the small TV in the living room. The news anchor spoke with that serious tone they always use when something important happens. Identified as Margot Siver, the former CEO of Clearwave Technologies, who vanished from public life 2 years ago following allegations of corporate fraud and insider trading. There she was, right there on the screen. Same face, bruised now, but still sharp around the eyes. The woman from the alley. Sources say she was attacked late last night in downtown Macon, but was rescued by a young boy. She's currently recovering in stable condition at Peachtree Regional Hospital. Police are investigating. Jaylen stared. The news went on to talk about lawsuits and boardroom battles, numbers too big to mean anything. They showed pictures of Margot from before, red carpet photos, magazine covers. She looked like someone who only flew on private jets and drank bottled water that cost more than his shoes. He glanced down at his feet, at the worn soles barely hanging on. Jaylen, his mama called. You want eggs or not? I'm good, he answered, voice flat. She peeked in. Boy, I know you didn't eat dinner last night either. I said I'm good. She paused, then walked in, wiping her hands on her apron. Something happened at the center yesterday? You've been real quiet. He hesitated. Should he tell her? He hadn't mentioned what happened yet. Not the alley, not the police, not Margot. Before he could decide, there was a knock at the door. A real knock. Firm. Official. His mama looked at him, then walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Yes? Good morning, ma'am, said a man in a navy suit. I'm with Peachtree Regional Hospital. Miss Margot Siver asked me to come personally. She'd like to speak with your son, Jaylen, right? His mama's eyes narrowed. He ain't in no trouble, is he? No, ma'am, the man said quickly. Quite the opposite. She looked over at Jaylen, confused. What's going on? Jaylen stood up, slow. It's about yesterday. I helped her when those men... He didn't have to finish. Her face changed instantly, from confusion to concern to a kind of deep, tired worry only mothers know. You all right? She asked. He nodded. Yeah. The man in the suit stepped aside. If you're comfortable, I can take you to the hospital. She just wants to thank him. His mama hesitated, then looked at Jaylen again. You sure you want to go? Yeah, he said, without blinking. The ride to the hospital was quiet. Jaylen sat in the back seat, hands folded, shoes tapping the floor. When they pulled into the hospital lot, the man led him through a side entrance, past a nurse's station, and into a private room. Margot was sitting up in bed, her face bandaged, her wrist in a soft brace, but her eyes were clear and locked on him the moment he walked in. There he is, she said softly. Jaylen stood awkwardly near the door. You, wanted to see me? Come here, she said, motioning with her good hand. He walked over. She reached out, and he offered his hand. Hers was cold, but firm. You saved my life. I just threw a brick, he mumbled, eyes down. No, she said. You did a lot more than that. They sat in silence for a second. She looked at him like she was trying to figure something out, like his face reminded her of something she'd almost forgotten. Then she said, You remind me of someone I knew, a long time ago. Jaylen didn't know what to say, so he just shrugged. Margot leaned back against her pillow. I've been hiding. From the world. From my past. From people who got hurt because of me. But I didn't expect a kid to show me something I hadn't seen in years. What's that? He asked quietly. Courage, she said. He blinked. I wasn't brave. I was just... I don't know. I just didn't want to leave you there. Margot's eyes shimmered, just a little, but what she whispered when he arrived shook him to his core. Margot looked around the hospital room. No doctors, no nurses in sight. Just her and the boy who'd risked everything. The one she couldn't stop thinking about since the ambulance doors closed the night before. She leaned in closer, her voice low. I never told anyone this, she said. Not even the press, not the police, not even my lawyer. Jaylen shifted in his seat. Margot's eyes were fixed on his. When I was about your age, maybe 13, I was homeless. Me and my little brother, Devin. Our mom disappeared, drugs. Our dad, never knew him. We bounced around shelters from Jackson to Birmingham. Some nights we slept under bus stops. Jaylen blinked. That wasn't in any of the news stories about her. They only talked about her being rich, ruthless, corporate snake. They never said anything about that. One winter, it got so bad, she went on. We hadn't eaten for 2 days. I was crying on the sidewalk, and this boy, maybe 15, came out of nowhere and handed us his jacket. Inside the pocket, there was a candy bar and $5. Jaylen didn't say anything. He just listened, eyes wide, like the story was being painted in real time. He didn't ask for anything, she said. Just told me, don't let this world take your heart from you. Then he walked away. She paused, her voice catching. 2 days later, I saw his face on the news. He'd been stabbed, trying to stop some guys from robbing a corner store. Just like you did for me. Jaylen's breath hitched. That boy, she whispered. He saved me too. Just like you did. And I never got to thank him. Silence stretched out between them, heavy, thick. Then Margot's hand tightened around his. When you dragged me out of that alley, Jaylen, I thought maybe it was just chance. But when I saw your eyes, I swear, it felt like I was looking at Devin. Or that boy. Or both. Jaylen finally spoke. What happened to your brother? Her lips pressed into a thin line. I lost him. Somewhere between foster homes and bad choices. I got adopted. He didn't. I've tried to find him, but he stopped answering a long time ago. I'm sorry. She nodded, wiping her eye gently. It's why I built the company. Why I worked like a dog. I wanted to make sure no kid ever had to feel invisible again. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I got greedy. I let people take the fall for things I should have stopped. Jaylen looked at her, trying to connect the woman in the news to the one holding his hand now. It didn't make sense. But somehow, it did. "You're not invisible," she said suddenly. "And you'll never be." He looked down. "I mean it. You didn't just save me from those men, Jaylen. You pulled me out of something much darker. You reminded me of who I used to be, before the headlines, before the lawyers." She leaned in even closer. "And that's why I have to do something. Not just for me. For you." He looked up. "What do you mean?" But Margot didn't answer. She just stared at him like she was searching for the right words, something buried so deep it hadn't seen daylight in years. She pulled him gently forward until he was close enough to hear her whisper. "What that boy said to me back then, I never forgot it," she murmured. "But now I want you to hear it too." She pressed her forehead lightly to his. "Don't let this world take your heart from you." That's when it hit him. The words, the weight, the meaning. Jaylen didn't cry easy, but right then, the tears came. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears that rolled down and hit her blanket like little raindrops. But there was something she hadn't told him yet. For the next few minutes, neither of them spoke. Margot stared at the ceiling like she was trying to find the courage tucked between the tiles. Jaylen sat quietly, wiping his face with his sleeve. He didn't know why her words hit him the way they did, but they stayed. Deep. Finally, she turned her head toward him. Her voice was quieter now. "There's more I need to tell you. Something I didn't say before." Jaylen's stomach did that little flip it always did when grown folks said, "Now let me explain something." It usually meant something bad was coming. She reached over to her bedside table, pulled open the drawer, and took out a small, beat-up notebook. The cover was peeling. The corners were bent. She ran her fingers over it before holding it out. "This used to belong to Devin," she said. "He used to draw in it. Poems, little sketches, crazy ideas for inventions." Jaylen took it gently, opened to a random page, a doodle of a bicycle made from what looked like garden hose and tin cans. He smiled a little. "I kept that notebook all these years," she said, "even when I lived in hotel rooms, even when I had assistants packing my bags. I never let anyone touch it." Jaylen turned another page. This one had a folded paper tucked in it. He opened it slowly. It was a photograph. 2 kids, a girl with braids and scraped-up knees, a boy with deep-set eyes and a toothy grin. The back was labeled in faint pencil, Devin and Reynard, 1994, Tinsley Shelter, Reynard. That name. Something inside Jaylen lit up. "My granddad's name is Reynard," he said slowly. "Reynard Brooks, my mom's dad." Margot froze. "You said 1994? He asked. She nodded slowly, her eyes locked on his. Jaylen flipped the photo back over, stared at the boy. The shape of the chin, the way his ears stuck out. The grin. That was Grandpa Ray. Margot sat up straighter in bed, suddenly alert. "Reynard Brooks," she whispered. "He was the one. He was the boy who gave me his jacket. The one who told me not to lose my heart." Jaylen looked up from the photo, stunned. Margot leaned forward, eyes wide. "He saved me." They sat in that moment, history crashing into present, like a wave swallowing them both. "Wait," Jaylen shook his head. "You're telling me my granddad knew you?" "Not just knew me," Margot said, barely holding herself together. "He gave me hope when no one else would." "My granddad died before I was born," Jaylen said. "Mama said he got stabbed trying to break up a robbery at a liquor store." Margot nodded slowly. "That's the same story I saw in the news when I was a kid. That's when I knew I'd never see him again." Her voice cracked. "I owe him everything. I never got to repay him. Never got to say thank you." Jaylen's fingers tightened around the photo. "Well, maybe you just did." Margot let out a shaky breath. "Maybe, but I need to do more." "You don't have to," Jaylen started. "I do," she said, cutting him off gently. "You don't understand. Your family, your grandfather gave me the courage to live. And now you gave me the courage to come back." Jaylen just looked at her, still trying to catch up with the fact that his granddad had saved her life long before he was even born. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" he asked quietly. "Because I wasn't sure," she admitted. "And honestly, I was scared. I've spent so long pretending I didn't owe anyone anything, that I didn't need to feel. But when I saw you, it felt like I was being pulled back to that moment in time, like life was giving me another chance." She wiped her eyes. Another chance to do right by someone who mattered. But Margot knew she had to make it right, before it was too late. 3 days passed. Margot was released from the hospital under private security and with very little press attention. She asked for no reporters, no statements, just one phone call. Jaylen was back to his usual routine: school, cans, homework. But something had changed. The world felt different now, like someone had cracked a window open in a room he didn't know had been locked. He didn't tell many people what happened. His mama knew, of course. She'd been glued to his side every moment since the hospital visit, watching him like he might disappear if she blinked too long. But she also watched him differently now, like she was proud in a way she couldn't quite say out loud. On Thursday afternoon, Jaylen was walking home when a black Lincoln pulled up beside him. Windows tinted, engines silent. He tensed. The back window rolled down slowly. Margot sat inside, wearing sunglasses and a clean white blouse. Her face was still bruised, but healing. "Jaylen," she said, "you got a minute?" He looked around, then nodded. "Yeah." "Hop in. I want to show you something." He hesitated, then climbed in. The car smelled like leather and mint. Quiet, comfortable. They drove in silence for a few minutes until they turned down a road he didn't recognize. "You trust me?" she asked. He looked at her. "I think so." "Good." They pulled into a lot next to an old brick building with boarded-up windows and weeds growing through the cracks. A sign above the door read, "Tinsley Shelter, closed." "This place," she said, stepping out, "used to be where I slept, where Devin and I stayed when we had nowhere else to go." Jaylen followed her as she walked up to the door and unlocked it. Inside, it was dusty, cold, abandoned, but not forgotten. She turned to him. "I bought it yesterday," she said, "and I'm reopening it, renovating everything, new kitchen, new beds, counseling services, and a computer lab." Jaylen's eyes widened. "For real?" "For real," she said. "It's going to be called the Raynard Brooks Center for Youth and Families, after your grandfather." He couldn't say anything at first. His throat tightened. "You sure?" he finally asked. Margot nodded. "I've never been more sure. Your granddad gave me the chance to live. You gave me the chance to feel again. I can't go back and fix everything I ruined, but I can start here." He blinked fast, trying not to cry again. "What about me?" "What about you?" she asked gently. "I mean, do I just go back to collecting cans and hoping the lights stay on?" She smiled. "No, Jaylen, you don't." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a full scholarship application for a private middle school just outside Macon, a top-tier one, with computers, art classes, robotics, everything Jaylen had only seen in TV shows. "I already paid the first year," she said. "You just have to say yes." Jaylen stared at the papers, then at her. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll give yourself a shot. Say you'll stop hiding how smart you are. Say you'll believe you're worth more than a few cans and a 10-minute shortcut." He nodded, quiet at first, then again, stronger. "Yeah," he whispered. "Okay." She smiled. "Also," she added, "your mama got a job offer from one of my companies. Full benefits, decent pay, work from home. She can say no, but I hope she doesn't." Jaylen sat back, overwhelmed. "You're serious?" "I don't do half serious, kid," she said. "Not anymore." He let out a breath that felt like it had been stuck in his lungs for years, but even Jaylen didn't see what was coming next. 2 months later, the old Tinsley Shelter had become something else entirely. Gone were the cracked tiles, broken windows, and rusted pipes. Now, bright orange murals lined the walls, painted by local teens. The floors shined. The air smelled like fresh paint and cinnamon muffins from the new kitchen. Jaylen stood just inside the lobby, wearing a brand new pair of sneakers and a pressed button-down shirt. He couldn't stop fidgeting with the sleeves. The place buzzed with life. Kids were laughing in the rec room. Volunteers set up chairs for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. His mama stood near the back, wearing a blouse she hadn't pulled out in years, proud and still trying to act like this was all normal. Margot walked up beside him, clipboard in one hand, sunglasses on top of her head. "You nervous?" she asked. He shrugged. "Kinda." She smiled. "You've faced worse." He glanced at her. "You really named it after him." "Of course I did," she said. "He was the start. You're the reminder." They stood in silence for a moment. Jaylen looked around. "How'd you do all this so fast?" "I didn't sleep," she replied with a small laugh. "And I finally called in favors I'd been too proud to ask for." "You always talk in riddles," Jaylen said, smiling. She laughed. "You'll get used to it." A few minutes later, she stepped up to the podium outside. Cameras were ready. Reporters waited. City officials nodded politely. But Margot didn't speak like someone giving a speech. She spoke like someone talking to family. "When I was young, I was lost," she began. "Angry, poor, invisible. And one day, someone who had even less than me gave me the only thing he had. Hope." She paused, looked at the plaque behind her. "He didn't ask for anything, just told me to keep my heart, no matter what the world tried to do to it." She looked at Jaylen then. "And when I lost my way again, it was another boy who reminded me what kindness looks like when no one's watching." The audience turned toward Jaylen. He shifted uncomfortably but didn't look away. "So today," Margot continued, "we reopen these doors not as a shelter, but as a promise. That no child is invisible, that no family is beyond help, that no act of good goes unnoticed." The crowd clapped. A little girl ran by and tugged at Jaylen's hand. "You the one who helped build this place?" He smiled shyly. "Kinda." "You gonna teach us computer stuff?" "I guess so," he said. "You want to learn?" She nodded, then ran off again. Margot stepped down from the podium, handed the scissors to Jaylen. "You want to cut the ribbon?" He looked up at her. "Me? You're the reason it's here." He walked forward, took the scissors with both hands, and cut clean through the red ribbon. Everyone cheered. That night, back at home, Jaylen sat on the porch steps while his mama sorted through a pile of paperwork from her new job. A breeze drifted through, soft and warm. "You okay, baby?" she asked. He nodded. "Just thinking." "About what?" He looked at the sky. "What Grandpa would have said." She closed the folder and smiled. "He'd say you did all right." Jaylen grinned. "Yeah, I think so too." A car pulled up across the street. Margot stepped out, waved, and started toward them with 2 backpacks in her hand. "What's that?" his mama asked. Margot handed one to Jaylen. "For your first day at the new school, laptops inside, and some books." Jaylen unzipped it. His fingers brushed over the cover of a thick math workbook, a robotics kit, and something else. Devin's old notebook, wrapped in plastic. He looked up. Margot just nodded. "It belongs with you now." He didn't have the words to answer. As she turned to go, she paused. "And Jaylen?" "Yeah?" "Keep your heart, no matter what this world throws at you." He smiled. "I will." And for the first time in a long time, he believed it. Life doesn't always give you back what it takes, but sometimes it gives you something else, someone else, to carry it forward. If you ever see someone struggling, someone smaller, someone with nothing, don't turn away. You never know who they'll become, or what they might do for you one day. Share this story if it touched you. Someone out there might need to hear it today.